Have you ever heard a song that sends a shiver down your spine for no reason at all? Some melodies carry more than just notes. They carry memories, pain, and sometimes a warning. In Wilder, Kentucky, there's a honky-tonk where the country music is loud, but the chilling whispers from below are louder. This isn't just a story about ghosts. It's about a place soaked in blood and sin. A place some call a direct gateway to hell itself. This is the story of Bobby Mackey's music world. For decades, the unassuming brick building on the banks of the Licking River has been a haven for country music fans. But before the guitars and cowboy hats, it was a slaughterhouse in the 19th century. Its history is a dark tapestry, woven with threads of violence, mob activity, and forbidden rituals. The stories claim the building isn't just haunted, it's cursed, a focal point for a malevolent energy that festers in its very foundation. Centered around a sealed, blood-stained well in the heart of its basement, enter Liam Carter, a seasoned documentary filmmaker with a reputation for debunking paranormal claims. He saw Bobby Mackey's as the ultimate challenge, a legend built on local folklore and amplified by television sensationalism. He secured permission for a 3-night lockdown investigation, arriving with his state-of-the-art equipment and a healthy dose of skepticism. He intended to peel back the layers of myth and find the logical truth. But he was about to discover that some truths are far more terrifying than any legend. The first thing that struck Liam upon entering wasn't a ghostly chill, but the mundane reality of a nightclub after hours. The air was thick with the scent of stale beer, disinfectant, and a faint, cloying sweetness of cheap perfume. The main floor, with its mechanical bull and neon signs, felt tired and empty. But as the current owner, a weary-looking man named Carl, led him towards the basement stairs, the atmosphere began to shift. It was a subtle change, a drop in temperature, and a strange pressure in the air that made Liam's ears pop. The basement was a stark contrast to the lively honky-tonk above. The air was damp and cold, carrying the metallic tang of rust. And something else, something ancient and organic, like old blood soaked into the earth. The stone walls were scarred and stained, and in the center of the floor was the infamous well, now sealed under a thick slab of concrete. Carl pointed to it, his voice low. "That's it," he said. "The portal. Whatever you do, be respectful. This place doesn't like to be mocked." Liam began his setup on the first night, placing cameras and audio recorders throughout the building, focusing primarily on the basement and the Johanna room, a dressing room named after a dancer who supposedly took her own life after her father murdered her lover. The legends spoke of her spirit, forever searching, her scent of roses, a common precursor to her appearance. Liam, ever the skeptic, dismissed it as a fanciful tale designed to spook tourists and sell tickets to ghost tour. The first few hours were were uneventful, filled with the groans and creaks of an old building settling. Liam monitored his feeds from a makeshift command center on the main stage. Just after 2 a.m., a motion-activated camera in the Johanna room triggered. The footage showed nothing but an empty room. But as Liam reviewed the audio, he heard it, a faint, mournful humming. A woman's voice singing a simple, sorrowful tune. A cold knot tightened in his stomach. It was his first piece of unexplainable evidence. Later that night, while conducting an EVP session in the basement, Liam felt a sudden, intense drop in temperature. His breath plumed in front of his face, and the batteries in his thermal camera, fresh an hour before, died instantly. He asked aloud, "Is there anyone here with me?" He waited in the oppressive silence, the only sound his own heartbeat. When he played back the recording, a low, guttural voice hissed through the static, a single, terrifying word: "Get." The second night, Liam decided to focus his attention on the story of Pearl Bryan. In 1896, her headless body was discovered in a field nearby. Her alleged killers, Scott Jackson and Alonzo Walling, were rumored to be Satanists who had used the slaughterhouse for their rituals and disposed of her head in the well. The legend claimed they cursed the building and all who entered it before they were hanged. Liam set a recorder on the concrete seal of the well and called out their names. The response was immediate and violent. A heavy wooden crate in the corner of the basement was thrown across the room, splintering against the far wall. Liam's flashlight flickered and died, plunging him into absolute darkness. He fumbled for his backup, his hands shaking, the sound of his own ragged breathing unnaturally loud. In the suffocating blackness, he heard shuffling footsteps circling him, heavy and deliberate, accompanied by a low, menacing growl that seemed to vibrate through the floor. When he finally got his backup light on, the room was empty, but the air was charged with a palpable malice. On the dusty floor near the well, a message had been scrawled, as if by an unseen finger. "Mine." Liam felt a primal fear he hadn't experienced since childhood. This was no residual haunting. This was intelligent, aggressive, and it was staking its claim. The stories of a demonic presence, something drawn to the site by the ancient rituals, no longer seemed so far-fetched. He retreated upstairs, his skepticism shattered. He reviewed the footage from the camera he had left running in the basement. It had captured the crate flying across the room, seemingly thrown by nothing. But just before the camera was knocked over, a tall, dark shadow, unnaturally gaunt and contorted, could be seen for a split second, detaching itself from the deeper darkness near the well. It was a shape that defied human anatomy, a brief, terrifying glimpse of the thing that now knew he was there. The sweet scent of roses suddenly filled the main dance hall, so strong it was almost suffocating. Liam turned to see a faint, shimmering outline of a woman in a long dress standing near the stage. her form translucent. She seemed to be looking at him, her expression one of immense sorrow. He raised his camera, but as he did, she faded away, leaving only the lingering floral scent and an overwhelming feeling of sadness. He realized the spirits of Johanna and Pearl were not the primary threat. They were victims, trapped in this place with something far worse. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the building sounded like a footstep. Every shadow seemed to move. Liam felt like he was being watched by 100 unseen eyes. He reviewed the history, the newspaper clippings about the murder, the trial, the hangings. Jackson and Walling had proclaimed their innocence, but they had also uttered a curse, vowing to haunt the location until their names were cleared. But was it their spirits causing the chaos? Or had their dark practices simply unlocked a door that could never be closed again? On the third and final night, Liam knew he had to confront the entity in the basement one last time. He felt a strange compulsion, a mix of terror and a journalist's need to get the definitive shot, the undeniable proof. He descended the stairs, not with skepticism, but with a grim sense of purpose, like a soldier entering a battlefield. He knew the entity was waiting for him. He could feel its anticipation, its hunger, a predatory stillness in the cold, damp air. He stood before the sealed well, the focal point of all the malevolent energy. He didn't use names this time. He simply said, "I know you're here. I'm not afraid of you. Show yourself." The challenge hung in the dead air. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, from the direction of the well, came the sound of a soft, rhythmic dripping. Even though the floor was bone dry, the sound grew louder, turning into a wet, tearing noise that made Liam's stomach churn. The temperature plunged to freezing. Frost began to form on his camera lens. A foul, sulfurous stench filled the basement, burning his nostrils and making his eyes water. The single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered violently, casting the room in a strobing, disorienting light. In the flashes, Liam saw it. The shadow was no longer just a shape in the corner. It was coalescing over the well, a writhing pillar of absolute blackness that seemed to suck the very light from the room. It had a form now, vaguely humanoid, but impossibly tall, with limbs that bent at unnatural angles. It had no face, only a void where features should be, a deep, guttural voice that was not a voice, but a vibration in his bones echoed around him, speaking in a language that was ancient and vile. Though he couldn't understand the words, he understood the intent. Pure, unadulterated hatred. This was the master of the house. This was the thing the ghosts themselves feared. The entity lunged. It didn't move across the floor. It simply crossed the distance in an instant. A blast of icy, foul-smelling air slammed into Liam, throwing him backward against the stone wall. His head connected with a sickening crack, and his vision swam. The camera flew from his hands, skittering across the concrete. He felt an immense, crushing pressure on his chest, pinning him to the wall, stealing the air from his lungs. He was utterly powerless. As his consciousness began to fade, he saw the face of Johanna, the sorrowful dancer, appear shimmering in the air beside the dark entity. She reached out a translucent hand, as if to plead with the creature. The shadow thing turned its featureless head towards her, and a shriek of pure agony echoed through the basement, a sound that was both hers and not. The shimmering form of Johanna was violently torn apart, dissipating like smoke in the wind. The entity had just demonstrated its absolute power. A searing pain erupted on Liam's back. It felt like 3 white-hot claws tearing through his jacket and skin. The sudden agony shocked him back to full awareness, fueled by a surge of adrenaline and a primal will to survive. He kicked out blindly, connecting with nothing solid, but somehow breaking the invisible pressure on his chest. He gasped for air, scrambling on all fours towards the stairs, not daring to look back. He fled up the stairs, the demonic laughter of the entity chasing him, a sound that would haunt his nightmares for the rest of his life. He didn't stop, didn't grab any of his gear from upstairs. He burst through the front doors of the club and into the pre-dawn gray, collapsing onto the dew-soaked pavement, gasping and trembling uncontrollably. He had gone into Bobby Mackey's, a skeptic, and he had come out a survivor. Carl, the owner, found him there an hour later when he arrived to open up. He saw the terror in Liam's eyes and the blood soaking through the back of his shirt. He simply nodded, a look of grim understanding on his face. "It doesn't like being challenged," was all he said, helping Liam to his feet. Carl helped him retrieve his main equipment from the stage, but refused to go into the basement to get the camera that had been knocked from his hands. "It's the house's now," he stated flatly, back in the sterile safety of his hotel room. Liam peeled off his shredded shirt. On his back were 3 deep, parallel gouges, angry and inflamed, from his shoulder blade to his hip. They were marks he knew from his research that many other visitors to the basement had reported receiving. It was the creature's brand, a physical reminder of its power and its claim. The wounds were a chilling, undeniable confirmation of his assault. The footage he had managed to save was horrifying. The audio was a cacophony of guttural roars, demonic threats, and the final agonizing shriek of Johanna's spirit. The video from the main floor camera showed Liam bursting from the basement door, his face a mask of pure terror. But it was the final few frames from the basement camera, before it was knocked over, that were the most damning. It showed the black pillar of the entity lunging directly at the lens. Liam's documentary was never the debunking piece he intended to make. Instead, it became a warning. He presented the evidence raw and unedited, his own terrified testimony serving as the narration. The film was a chilling success, praised for its authenticity and raw horror, but it came at a price. Liam suffered from severe PTSD, plagued by nightmares of a featureless face and a suffocating darkness. He never set foot in another, allegedly haunted location again. Bobby Mackey's music world continues to operate. The country music still playing, the beer still flowing. Patrons dance and laugh on the floorboards, completely unaware that they are standing directly above a place of such profound darkness. The stories continue to leak out. Staff members being pushed by unseen hands, the scent of roses in empty rooms, and the deep, angry growl that sometimes rumbles up from the basement. A sound the staff has learned to ignore. The spirits of Pearl and Johanna remain, their tragic stories forever entwined with the building's bloody history. They are not the source of the evil, but its eternal victims, their spiritual energy serving as a perpetual food source for the demonic entity that has claimed the well as its own. They are the sad opening act for a headliner from the depths of hell itself, trapped in a cycle of fear and sorrow from which there is no escape. The well remains sealed, a concrete cap on a bottle containing a genie of unimaginable evil, but the seal is just a physical barrier. The energy, the malice, the gateway itself, it's still open. The rituals performed over a century ago did more than just kill a young woman. They tore a hole in the fabric of our reality, a wound that has never healed and continues to fester in the dark beneath the honky-tonk. Some paranormal experts and psychics who have visited the site refuse to enter the basement, claiming the energy is not that of a human spirit, but something ancient, inhuman, and utterly devoid of anything but hatred. They believe the building is not just a place where a portal to hell exists, but that the building itself has become a living extension of that infernal domain, a kind of embassy for the damned on earth. And what of the entity? It waits in the darkness. It feeds on the fear of visitors, the energy of the trapped spirits, and the lingering echoes of the blood that was spilled there. It is patient. It has been there for over a century, and it will be there long after the last song has been played and the neon signs have burned out for good. It is the true owner of the property, the silent, malevolent partner in the music world above. So, if you ever find yourself driving through Wilder, Kentucky, and you see the lights of Bobby Mackey's, you might be tempted to stop in for a drink and a song. But remember what lies beneath your feet. Remember the stories of the murdered girl, the heartbroken dancer, and the dark thing that was invited in and never left. The music might be loud, but if you listen carefully between the notes, you might just hear a whisper from the well. The final, chilling question is not whether the haunting is real, but what the entity's ultimate purpose is. Is it content to remain in its basement domain, a king in its small, dark kingdom? Or is the energy it gathers being used for something else? Is the gateway, the portal, slowly growing wider, stronger with each passing year? The music above might just be the perfect distraction. A lively facade hiding the terrifying truth that the door to hell has been opened, and no one knows how to shut it.